Salutations, everybody. Just doing the final bits of check-in before we go into the start of a new particular series for me, one that we're going to end up having a bit of fun with. Doc is going to go bonkers because today's session is one about the wrestling, would you know? Yes, I'm going to end up doing what I would do based on the situation that WWE has put themselves into, and continue on post that, and we'll see what ends up happening with how I end up doing things. There will be some things that disappoint, there will be some things that intrigue, but the crack will be had and all shall be sound. It's nice to see that is working now, that the actual incremental for each individual person is now working, so that's something nice for everyone to end up going through. So that's a bit of crack for absolutely everyone. We're just setting up a couple of things here now before we end up going and see how all ends up working. But with that being said, my friends, on this fine Sunday, what's a crack-a-lackin'? How is life treating you? Is all going good? Is all going grand? Is it all going saucy? What's the life going? Oh, don't worry. I'll get into my opinion on all of that as I am doing the save, and my opinion on the WWE form of things, how they've set themselves up and how things would end up going, because I 100% agree with you, Skull. Seth didn't need the money in the bank. The one person that won it didn't need it. Guys. Nice to see that it's going well. There wasn't a chance in hell LA Knight was going to win it, and I understand why people are annoyed at the fact that LA Knight didn't win it, and that what does LA Knight need to end up doing? LA Knight needs to stop being safe, is what LA Knight needs to end up doing. There wasn't a chance LA Knight was going to win that. Solo probably should have won it, but we'll see what ends up happening now with Jacob and Solo. I think my problem with them pulling the cord on the Jacob Solo situation when they did is that there's no proper setup for what you're going to end up doing with Seth Rollins' crew. Why did JC Mateo end up coming down and helping? But we'll see as I end up deciding what I'm going to end up doing. There are a couple of things that have already been announced, so if I was to take over tomorrow morning, there are a few things that I'd end up having to do. So with all that being said, let's get into it. Let's get into it, let's have the crack, and let's look at what will end up happening. Now, funnily enough, and this probably isn't the way you should end up doing it, I have it set up at the moment that it's starting from today. Some of the contracts are still in the situation that they're going to be. I'll sort that out as we're going through it. But for now, we'll just go on with how things are going. We're just going to focus on Monday Night Raw tonight, and we'll focus on other elements later on as things are going to go. Like this one in particular, that's getting re-signed. It's also wrong on when it's meant to be up, but this is the game, assuming when things are going to end up doing. That needs to be removed. Okay, now that I'm after noticing it there. Some of these events are in the wrong spot, so just bear with us. Okay, cool. So the next event for WWE is meant to be June 28th, 19 days away, to Night of Champions. Now, WWE did announce how they were going to end up doing the men and women's Royal Rumble. But what they said made not a lick of feckin' sense, so I might end up ignoring what they ended up saying. But WWE ended up saying last night, and I'm going to end up sharing on TikTok as well, so just bear with me while I start that. So what was said last night was that the men and women's money, or the men and women's King of the Ring, the King and Queen of the Ring, will end up happening at Night of Champions, which begs the question why this event just wasn't called King and Queen of the Ring like it was the year before. But, you know, semantics aside, WWE being idiots, what's the bloody point? The way they announced it was that they were going to do a couple of fatal four-way matches leading into a single tournament afterwards. I can't be arsed doing that, and I think that's a daft idea. So I'm just going to ignore that, and they did confirm there are going to be a couple of tournament matches set for Monday Night Raw. Now, with that being said, too, they haven't stated what any of those matches are, so I'm going to end up adding 2 of them onto this show and see how things are going to end up going. Now, there are a couple of things they did announce, so that has to happen on the show in order to be fair. Coming off of Money in the Bank, they announced the return of Nikki Bella. They announced the World Heavyweight Championship match of Jey Uso versus Gunther. They announced that both Seth and Naomi were going to show up. They announced that Becky Lynch was going to end up having a celebration as the IC champion. They announced that Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez the tension was going to continue on, and how would the Judgment Day deal with that. And they said that we might end up hearing the truth. So you'll be expecting that to come in. Now, with that being said, do you bring in Jacob Fatu? Do you bring in JC Mateo? Do they end up coming into the equation in this particular situation, considering how all is being done there? In my opinion, we'll play it a bit and see how things end up going, but play with me and listen to what I end up saying, and we'll see how things end up going. Now, when I've shown Pro Wrestling Simulator before, I have been quite intensive, quite strong in what I've been doing before. Now, this is down as 150 minutes of content, and Raw is a little bit different to... Am I? Oh, I can't be. Because I'm listening to myself. I'm not on mute. I mean, there is a created character section, Blockbuster. I can add characters to this, but this isn't the save for that. Later on, I will be doing a CSE save, and I'll be adding people into it and doing what I would end up doing, starting from scratch with one as well. But that's future. For now, I'm just going to do with this one here. So, first things first is that the June 9th, 2025 Raw is from Phoenix, Arkansas. So we'll end up doing that first of all as well. So we look for Arkansas, Arizona. Yeah, Arizona here. And within Arizona, they don't have Phoenix as a substation of it, but it is the PHX. So because that isn't there, I'm going to leave it with the size capacity we have, the local huge arena in there, because they don't have that particular arena in here. The one good thing with this, and it's handy for us, is that this has set up WWE's child promotions, main promotions, and partner promotions. We have all of TNA here because we're partnered with them. We have all of AAA here because they now own them. They have the relationship that's meant to be there with Noah and Marigold. For the most part, I'll probably be ignoring that. But just so we end up going down to it. Now, this Raw, after that, should end up starting, in theory, should end up starting with Seth Rollins. But I actually think you do your typical little promo video of, you know, elevated situations. Basically, it's a simulation skull where you end up booking whatever ends up coming down. It gives a rating on what you end up doing and you end up going through. It's a less interactive version of Football Manager. So, you know, it's just that type of way. So, it's not the greatest interactive thing in the world, but basically that. It's basically makeshift Booker the job. So I think one of the things that'll end up happening is they'll spend the first 3 minutes of the show just doing a 3-minute highlight reel, basically, of everyone that was in the in the match. So you'll have like a showcase of the women. It's J-I. Okay, so you'll end up having that. So you'll have Julia, Alexa Bliss, Rhea Ripley, Roxanne, Stephanie Vacour. This would be the way I would do it first, is I'd show the women first. Then I would show the Dominic Mysterio bit. I'd do it in the actual order that you ended up showing the event. So like this. Then you do the Becky title change. So showcase all of that there. Like, this is just the easy bit. This is just the promo of the night before. So just the joys of them adding so many goddamn people into the show that you need to end up going through it like this. But that's an entirely different kettle of fish. Andrade. So Andrade. El Grande Americano. There. Who is still the speed champion, weirdly enough, even though that doesn't matter a goddamn bit. L.A. Knight. Penta. Solo. Jacob. JC. So that's them there, and then you do Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso, John Cena. Take that out because he isn't managed by him, but that's funny that you think that it is game. Logan Paul. And R-Truth. Yeah, get rid of that. Elevate this position. That's the entirety of everyone that is there. And basically that segment is video recap of PLE. So the Money in the Bank PLE. Now, I know wasting 3 minutes on that seems interesting, but there will actually have been a surprising amount of people that didn't watch that goddamn show. So, you know... I'm only doing this once because it's easy. I won't be doing this in the future. Okay, so how do you start the show after the video recap ends up happening? You do the recap, and then how does it end up coming into the actual show that you'd end up doing? You'd think you'd end up picking one of the two winners of the Money in the Bank, Naomi or Seth Rollins. But I think you need to use Seth Rollins ridiculously sparingly, and in fact, we'll end up having him talk later on. And I don't think you use Naomi on this show at all. I think Naomi shows up on SmackDown. Now, I have a problem with Naomi as the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match winner anyway. And my problem with Naomi being the winner of the Money in the Bank ladder match is Naomi has no game face. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's 100% understandable. She is in a position that's great for her career and the whole lot, but that woman cannot hold a face. That woman cannot stay in character. She has such a problem all of the time staying in the character that she wants to be in. So ironically, what I would do with Naomi is throw her into absolutely everything and do the complete opposite with Seth, and make Seth basically hide the fact that he has the championship, or has the Money in the Bank, and Seth announced that he's going to go into the King of the Ring anyways, with doing a solo Sikoa that was done the week before for the Money in the Bank with Braun and Bronson going into it anyway as well. So how do I start this off? I think the best way to start this is actually to bring Cody Rhodes out. The one that pinned John Cena. Mike, thank you so much for the follow. What's a crack-a-lackin' with you? How is your Sunday treating you? You've joined just as I'm going through how I would end up booking Monday Night Raw for when we're ended up going through this. And we'll see how things end up going there. I think you end up doing an elevated entrance for Cody Rhodes. And like all of these things, entrances take far too long. So you're talking about 3 minutes for Cody's entrance. You just have that, a Cody Rhodes entrance. So that's your first 6 minutes taken up there. Cody will then start to do a promo. So in typical WWE fashion, something that could be done in 3 minutes will end up taking damn near 10. So we'll put this down as 9 minutes. One step closer. Rambles about saving wrestling, and with this win will get Cena ASAP, be that via King of the Ring, or because WWE hasn't mentioned this, his goddamn rematch. Because WWE hasn't mentioned that he has that. So, you know, that's an interesting little tidbit. Now, I had mentioned a couple of weeks ago that Cody Rhodes, that the match I was thinking that would be set up for SummerSlam to a couple of friends of mine was Cody Rhodes versus John Cena with R-Truth as the special guest referee. And funnily enough, that's what I do. Do this as a short entrance, a 2-minute entrance. Yes, I have a mod brought in there. There's a fantastic mod supporter. He has his own Discord and the whole lot by the name of Herb85, Pro Wrestling Simulator. He has a Steam Workshop version put up on there at the moment. If you search up on the Steam Workshop, and I'll go back so I can show you. If you go on to the Steam Workshop and look for the correct situation, you'll end up seeing the Herb85 Then, Now, and Forever mod. He updates it every now and again, and that's up to date with the current latest stuff in it. I'm just picking WWE because that's handy. This has a monstrous amount of detail in it. Like, I could go and start plucking some of these if I wanted to as well. You have a monstrous amount of stuff in it. AEW is in it as well with a couple of their relationships and the whole lot. It tells you where everyone is off, where everyone's positioned is. You can do an incredible amount of stuff. I've been using Herb85 stuff for about 3-4 years now. They're simply divine at this stuff, and I highly recommend their mods. But yeah, Cody would end up rambling about that, and then R-Truth would do an entrance. And I actually think R-Truth's entrance should be his old Little Jimmy entrance where he comes out to no music. So he literally just comes out and walks down to the ring. So basically like that. So you end up having it set up like that. So video recap, Cody ends up having his big entrance after his win. You could end up having Jay with him as well if you wanted to, but I think this is the way you end up doing that. They ramble about that, and I know it's funny enough that you're doing all of this for this particular situation when it's the SmackDown Championship, but I think this is the way you end up doing it. Then you have R-Truth cut a promo on Cody. And Cena. That's going to get really annoying. I'm going to need to remove that a bit. Did I have that down as a promo? Yes. And I need that to be on Cena. Have I missed something between the two of you? What are ye ready for, my friends? Skull and Blockbuster. Have I missed something between the two of you? So, I think you basically have this as Truth comes up, cuts a promo on the two of them. Cody will end up doing a back and forth with him. So the two of them will end up shouting with each other for about, you know, knowing, again, everything in WWE is long, so about 5 minutes. And then Adam Pearce will end up appearing. And we'll make the match R-Truth versus Cody Rhodes for the first, and the winner faces Cena at Night of Champions. And that match is next. I think that's the way you end up doing that. Get it out of the way straight away. And I think, honestly, that's the best way to end up doing it, because that's your first 23 minutes. It sets everything up. You're going to want to do something with Truth straight away now that he has the wee bit of excitement. The crowd will be really into this particular match there. And the thing with Truth is going to be hit with a massive wave of satisfaction. Everyone is going to be happy that he's there. But in my opinion, the actual best thing to do with Truth is as soon as possible turn him heel. R-Truth has the problem that he's just so good at everything he does that if he teams up with anyone, he overshadows them. So as a result of that, it is my opinion that you need R-Truth to be the adversary, not the companion. You need to be the person that's going against, not the person that's going to. So I think you end up doing this particular match, Cody Rhodes, a random match on Raw. I know you shouldn't end up doing it, but Cody Rhodes versus R-Truth. Now, here's the interesting thing about the last few Raws. So, like, last week on Raw, they had 4 matches. and not a single match went above 11 minutes. And they put advertisements in between it, so I actually think that's about as long as they'd end up letting this go. I think they'd probably, not that it matters for the referee, but they'd probably end up using Chad Patton for that. One of their well, no, Chad will be used for the main event. So they'd probably end up using Eddie Orango for that. The two of them are still on the agent for that. It doesn't matter who the agent is, but you're as well pick someone who's grand at this type of stuff. So Shane Helms, I suppose. In my opinion, the winner of this match has to be Cody. And how do you do this? I actually think it's a flash pin. I think even though you want Cody to be kept strong, even though you want Cody to be kept as, you know, that strength member, I think you actually end up needing this match to be a kind of flash pin, a roll-up or something like that, because you want to end up getting a situation in the upcoming week, specifically on SmackDown, where R-Truth is med into the special guest referee. But you want this to make R-Truth look good. I just spell official again. O-F-F-I-C-I-A-L. Is that right? No, that's wrong. Oh, that was right. Okay. You're just whinging for no reason.
And I think you get that out of the way as soon as possible. Doc, you're a nice person for doing that. Thank you so much. So that's ironically the first fifth of the show. But yeah, you're not a fan of this at all, are you? Are you, Duck? No, I understand if you're not. So I'm only trying this. If this doesn't end up being successful in any way, shape, or form, I mightn't do it again. But I'm just trying it to see how things end up working out. I think after Truth gets pinned, I mean, thank you so much for that, Duck. I'm sorry it's something you don't enjoy. I mean, yes, yes, Gunther, I'm not gonna lie to you, Gunther is losing. because it's the wrong time to do it. I mean, that's a fair enough way to end it. That's a fair enough feeling to end up having, Duck. I think after that, the camera will end up panning back to Chad Gable. The joys of that, my friend. And Chad... Well, Chad's subject matter would be everyone that was in the Money in the Bank ladder match. So I need to do this again, which is fun. So... Oh, God damn it. Hey, yeah, El Grande, because El Grande is part of it, but not there. LA Knight. Penta. And Solo Sikoa. So I think you basically have Chad Gable come up and start talking about everyone that was there and the fact that he ended up having his match versus El Hilo del Viquino. So... you'd end up having a basically 4-minute segment with Chad. I took a world champion to his limits. Let's do it again. So basically you'd end up having Chad talk about the fact that he had the match the weekend versus El Hilo del Viquino. I'm not 100% sure about that, my friend. That's interesting to end up knowing. Let me know if you figure it out. Then Adam Pearce would end up showing up because Pearce has to have this bit of banter with Chad. And then he'll make a match for next, which would be Chad Gable versus Penta. Well, do you go for Penta straight away? Because that's a match that they're going to end up doing later on at some point in time. That's a match that they're building up to doing again. So you have the option of going for someone like Chad Gable versus Penta. Ironically, you want Chad Gable to lose this match anyway. So it doesn't really matter who you put him up against. It's just a matter that you want Chad Gable to go into the tournament for the King of the Ring first. And you want him to lose. And then in the final match for the tournament, you want it to be El Grande Americano. So Pierce would end up having a wee bit of banter, stating that he'd have Chad Gable versus El Grande Americano. Ultimately, they'd end up stating that that El Grande isn't here, he's sick or got hurt or blah 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 blah, and they end up setting up a match. Now, what I would do is this: I would basically have it that Chad gloats for about 2 minutes. About his match with Vikingo. Then about El Grande's performance in Money in the Bank. Pierce appears, agrees, says El Grande versus Chad for first place in King of the Ring. However, El Grande is injured, got a knock. That doesn't stop you, Gable. Your match is now. Basically, you end up setting it up that way. It gives you a way to end up teasing that El Grande Americano won't be around for a bit. It allows you to end up having a setup that ends up ensuring that you end up playing with the fact that El Grande is there. You end up doing something with Chad Gable. So you end up coming like this. Chad Gable ends up coming out with the entirety of American Made. You just get rid of that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. So you have Julius Creed and Ivy Nile there like that. And his opponent will be one of the people from AAA. And I actually think the way that you do this, considering how over he got, if WWE are okay with doing this, and I would do this, and if you were willing to pay him to do it, this is legitimately what I would do. I would turn around and I would do Iguana. Iguana is in no way good enough, big enough, or anything to be in contention to end up having that SummerSlam match. So he's a waste of time in the tournament. But with that being said, I could just imagine the reaction of the WWE audience if you ended up doing this, and it gives AAA a bit more showcase, and Iguana got over beyond belief. I'd love to do that. I don't know if WWE will be allowed to do that. So it begs the question of what do you do? Do you go with your heart and what you would want to end up happening? Or do you go with what is somewhat realistic? That's what I'd want to happen, is Chad Gable versus Iguana, and Iguana pick up the victory. And specifically pick up the victory because someone like Penta ends up coming out and El Hilo del Vikingo to help Iguana. If you're going to keep AAA around and you're going to make a big deal about them, you need to end up using them in more than just NXT. And El Hilo del Vikingo has showed up a good bit on Monday Night Raw for his interaction with Chad Gable. Some of the other ones should continue to come around here. So I legitimately think this is what you do. You end up going Iguana. Now, Iguana's not going to go very far in this, but you go with Iguana and versus Chad Gable. You have maybe a 7-minute match. I'd like it to be longer, but at the same point in time, that's about what it probably would end up being. And that's probably where you'd end up going, a 7-minute match like that. And you'd have basically Iguana win thanks to interference. You'd obviously make Chad Gable look good. And you'd have Penta, El Hilo, Del Vikingo both interfere, even though they're good guys. You just would end up doing that. And then that would basically end up meaning that Iguana is the first one into the tournament, which is fascinating to me, but I think makes sense because you then have him lose the next time you end up having him face off against someone. So I think the tournaments should be thing is, I don't know who's going to be in it. So for now, I'll just write it down myself. I haven't 100% planned that out yet, because it's going to be over both shows. So I think you go with this match. Oh god damn it! I didn't save it. The joys of intelligence by me. I've hardly had any reds this season. Happy out, Duck. What have you changed in order to end up having that occur, where you have no reds in your save this season as opposed to what you had before? So we go with Iguana there. El Hilo. And Penta. There. It's funny that it's worked out for you, so congratulations that it's worked out for you, I suppose. No, nothing like that. No gimmick. Iguana win. Interference. Chad Gable lose. Make Chad Gable look good for what you can in a 6-minute match. El Hilo and that end up doing it. Well, I actually think it might go over 6 minutes. I think this should be a 9-minute match. And don't care. So I think you end up going with that. Now, again, the reason for that is so that you can end up setting things up later on. Have it so that El Hilo del Vikingo ends up potentially end up coming back around again and gives AAA a bit more of a showcase into itself. Although we struggle hard compared to the prior season when it came down a man, so I shouldn't really complain. Hey, so where are you positioned-wise so far at the moment in your save, Duck? I would do that. I'd have Chad Gable end up losing. Iguana ends up going on, so... So I'd end up doing that. Then I would have, after the match ends up finishing, it moving over to Dominic Mysterio. Now, here's the big thing with this one. There are two options for why you brought Nikki Bella back. Okay? There are two options why you brought Nikki Bella back. You brought Nikki Bella back because you want her. I'm going to save that for a second. We'll fix it in a second. There are two reasons why you brought Nikki Bella back. You brought Nikki Bella back because you want her to be used at Evolution. Okay? Now, that is just the reason. That's why she's back. You want her for Elevation. So you want her for... Where is it, by the way? It's this evening. Yeah. For WWE Elevation in 34 days. So you want her 1 month's time. You want her for Evolution. Okay? Now, here's the thing. We haven't been told if Brie is back with her. So there are two options on how you do this. And it depends heavily on if Brie Bella is back. If Brie Bella is back with her, you have Nikki Bella interact with Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, and you have a tag team match of Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, the tag team champions, I think. Yes. Versus Nikki Bella and Brie Bella for the championships, which of course Liv and Raquel will end up winning. Now here's the caveat, here's the wrinkle in that particular plan. If Brie Bella isn't back, and I know an awful lot of people won't agree with this, but Nikki Bella is big enough. Also, I need to change this. Shit. How do I change who the champion is? Titles. Okay. That is Selena Vega. The World Heavyweight Women's Intercontinental Championship, owned by that. Current champion is Becky, because that literally changed, so we need to do that. New date 1 was June 7th. Yep, June 7th, and there you go, Bob's your uncle. So here's the wrinkle in the plan. If go SmackDown for the US title, yeah, but that's Selena Vega there. It's just Lyra's not meant to be the champion. I didn't change it. I forgot to change Becky to be the champion. So here's the thing. If Brie Bella isn't back with Nikki, it's very, very obvious that that's the match you do. You do Becky Lynch versus Nikki Bella at Evolution for the Intercontinental Championship. That's just the match you do. But the problem is Brie back? I don't know that. So because I don't know that, and I'm going to go with the assumption that the answer is no, I'm not going to do what you should do here, which is have the Bellas interact with Liv Morgan in this Dominic Mysterio segment. But we need to have Dominic Mysterio show up and have an interaction there. If we're not doing the Bella Twins in a tag team match versus Liv and Raquel, which is what should happen here, if we're not doing that, which I don't think we're going to because we can't confirm that that is what's going to end up happening, I think what we do instead is we set up that Pierce has created the first women's money or a Queen of the Ring competition, and because Pierce is an arsehole, we set this up to be Raquel Rodriguez versus Roxanne Perez. The first one goes through, and obviously Roxanne wins. So here's my question, Skull. Which do we go for? Which do we go for? Do we go with what is likely going to be the case, and Brie Bella isn't back with Nikki? because otherwise they would have announced both of them? Or do we go with the fact that Nikki is on her own and that it is basically going to be Nikki at Evolution and Brie won't be there? Or at least won't be in a match there. So what do you recommend, Skull? What do you think? But, like, she's not back for good. She's not back for good, so that's the thing about it. And it's blatantly... And she's announced for Raw, so they're doing something with her. I'd agree with you. I'd put her on SmackDown. Problem is, if you put her on SmackDown, you'd be putting her against Zelina Vega, and Zelina Vega should have that championship ripped off her arse so fast it's not even funny. But that's going to be the match at Evolution as well, I think. I think the match at Evolution is going to be Zelina Vega versus Julia, where Julia's going to rip that championship from her hand so fast it's going to spin. If you watch my comments on SmackDown, Zelina Vega pissed me royally off. But yeah, I don't think Brie is going to be back. So I think that's how you do it. I think you have Nikki come out and Becky interrupt her. Becky turn around and state that the great is here and Bob's your uncle happy out. Jezza, if Selena has had a good title reign, I'll let you know that I am the winner of Miss Universe. Congratulations for you thinking that, and I can read the sarcasm coming off of that statement so much. I don't mind Zelina Vega, but in that match, you walked out, on SmackDown, by the way, in that match, you walked out versus Chelsea Green to crickets. Crickets. You're not an idiot. You know when you have crickets, play the goddamn crowd. You know, it would help. So, as a result of that, she's going to end up losing. Now, how do you end up setting up that match? You can't have her against Julia because that'll just be a squash straight away. So that's something that ends up setting up. But I think this is what you end up doing. And it gives you multiple women's segments on Monday Night Raw as well, which ends up helping. So I think Dominic will end up gloating about the fact that he's still the Intercontinental Championship. And then Finn will inform them about the match. So this segment is basically called Dom Gloats. Finn spoils. Rocks versus Raquel. Because we're not going to go with the tag team match, I think that's how we end up doing it. By the way, feel free to pop in and state how you would end up going with it. Oh, with the way WWE is going, probably not for another year, to be honest. It's hard to know. So it's interesting, that. But we'll continue on anyway and see how we'd end up doing it. So I think Dom gloats he'd beat all the luchas. And that's going to set up for Dom to be included in the King of the Ring. And the match that we're going to end up doing with Dom will be Dom versus JD as a way to tread the lines again on Finn, where Finn needs to choose between Dom and JD. But that's next week, not this week. I think they do, Skull. I think they want Dom as a babyface. And I think that's the right move, to be honest. But I think Dom gloats that he beat all the luchadors. And so you get a minute of Dom gloating about that. Well, 2 minutes of Dom gloating about that. A joke about Iguana. That Iguana is in the tournament, and that's probably not realistic, but I might as well have fun with this while I'm at it, considering they own the goddamn company, and now that you have them, you as well use them. I know that one's not really realistic, but I'm gonna go with it anyway. So we end up doing that. Dom gloats that he beat all the luchadors, gloats about Iguana being the company in the tournament. He should be in it. Then we have Finn pipe in, so Finn, and I'll add all of these to it in a minute. I'm just setting up the structure for this first. So Finn will end up, then we have Finn interrupt. Finn state, well, You're not. Boss. And Finn, ironically, is the announcer of Liv Morgan, or not Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, well, with Liv, I suppose, versus Rox. Adam was cruel and made Rox versus Raquel as the first queen of the ring match next. And I think that's the way you end up doing it. It continues to have Finn being an asshole. It gives Dom his gloating period of time there where he's able to come across and seem better than he actually is. The proper way to end up doing it. The nice way to end up having it. Also, by the way, I suppose... Give me a second. But that's that there. I guess I will... Come on, crikey. Sorry, bear with us a second. Okay, do that, and then that means I can go and do that and pin it to the moment, I suppose. Hula in case anyone wants to end up coming over or is having any issues with it, they can end up doing that. Still need to figure out the problems that I'm having with the YouTube vertical, but I'm happy someone ended up coming in and commenting anyway. So, why Portugal play Neves at right back? Because they've no one else to play there. That's the reason why they're doing it, Skull. They've no one else to play there. I do think it's odd, but to be fair, Neves is such a good player that it doesn't really matter, to be honest. Yeah, I repeat my statement. There's no one else to play there. Funnily enough, like Delo has just lost any right he has to end up going into that, unfortunately. So, you know, what can you really do? I know he's on the bench. He's going to be there as an option. He just has no right to start. Iguana, Octagon Jr., and Penta. Like that. That gives Dom his gloatingness. So you have Dom gloating about the luchadors and that he should be in the tournament. You have Finn stating that he's not, but that the match between Raquel and that is going to end up happening. And then that match is basically announced for next. A look at both of them, and then we go straight into that match. So, yeah. So at the hour mark, we're going into that particular match of Raquel Rodriguez with Liv Morgan versus Roxanne Perez. And I think that's the way you end up doing that. As a complete way to just mess things up with it, add a wee bit of character to the situation. Do that. We have Tamina, I suppose, considering you want to have I suppose WWE being WWE would have a woman produce a woman's match. Not 100% sure about that, but that's probably what's going to end up happening there. No gimmick. Finish would be Roxanne Perez picking up just the pin. Well, I actually think it'll be a flash pin because of a botched interference by Liv, but I actually think it'll just be a pin. And make Perez look good as a weird situation, but I think that's the way you end up doing it. I think that makes it look the best way now. If it's me, I think that's the match you end up doing. I know it's an odd dynamic to have them do that. I also think you have the rest of Judgment Day out there. So Finn there, Liv there, JD, Dominic, and unfortunately, I don't know what's happening with Carlitos until I know we still have him on the WWE roster, but he won't be there, obviously, because who knows if they're going to bring back Carlito the same way they did with R-Truth. But I do think this is the match you end up doing. I do think it's another 8-minute match. I'd like these matches to be longer, but I do think that's the way they end up doing it. I do think it'll be a regular pinfall. Now, let's actually consider something. So, in the Money in the Bank ladder match, Roxanne Perez had interactions with Stephanie Vaquer and Rhea Ripley. So you have the option now within the Judgment Day having a match in between themselves to have Rhea Ripley or Stephanie Vaquer show up. This is a heel versus heel match, which isn't a great way to do it. Actually, now that I think about it, that's daft. That's actually daft. WWE's making a big deal about Stephanie Vaquer. That actually is a better match. Raquel versus Vaquer. And that actually is just a better match. That makes far more sense for it to be Vaquer. Really? Oh, she's still down on NXT for some reason. Why are you the NXT champion? Okay, we need to remove that as well. Okay, fair enough. We'll fix that in a minute. Vaquer, because we want her to end up losing, so we end up doing that instead. So we have the entirety of the Judgment Day out there. Finn Balor, Liv Morgan, JD McDonough, Dominic Mysterio, and Carlito versus Stephanie Vaquer there. And eventually what's going to end up happening here as a way to bring things back around is when Roxanne ends up trying to interfere, Rhea Ripley will end up coming out into the match. Inevitably, that will leave Stephanie Vaquer getting a win. And that's the way you end up doing that. You make Vaquer look good. Vaquer is the first one through. You end up having that, and that be the case of the people that interfere. And that actually is just better. And then that ends up leading to a situation where next week you're going to end up having Roxanne in the match, and Roxanne will end up getting through. as a way to showcase and brown nose on that showcase. And I think that's the way you end up doing that. I don't know if he actually is gone Skull. That's what I'm saying there. That's why it's interesting to see what's going to end up happening with it. It wouldn't shock me at all if he wasn't gone, to be honest. It would be interesting if he did end up coming back. I think he is. With the reaction that he ended up having, I do think he's properly gone. I do think there's no chance that Carlito is back. I think he is just gone. But we'll see what ends up happening. We'll give it time and we'll end up seeing. Okay, so we now have 62 minutes of the show booked. We can add up to another 88 minutes. This is where things are interesting because WWE doesn't like to have more than 5 matches on a show. So, and we have the main event as well. I mean, I prefer them just not re-signing someone as opposed to releasing them, but at the end of the day it still is a horrible situation to have happen. And there's not really much you can end up doing with that situation. You just end up going through, seeing what ends up happening and trying your best to end up being grand with what ends up happening. So I think after... Yeah, I know you're saying it's Ron Killings. I don't think you end up announcing him as Ron Killings yet. I think it's just R-Truth for the moment, and it's Ron Killings that ends up showing up as the special guest referee. So I would have him come up as R-Truth for the first wee bit and then convert it. But we'll see. I think after that segment, where you end up announcing the second person into the tournament, I think then you have a promo segment with Jey Uso interacting with Sami Zayn, because of course you do. You still need to tease that. So you have a talking amicably situation between Jey Uso and Sami Zayn. Give that about 4 minutes, because that would be what would end up happening with them. Once that ends up happening, you probably move the camera over to Gunther. Who's walking into his locker room, and you just literally ling on him for 1 minute as he refuses to say anything. That's basically a hype for the main event. Basically, you have Jey and Sami talk. Sami warns Jey, and then they tease a wee bit of tension, because it wouldn't be right if they didn't end up doing that. They'd do that every bloody time the two of them meet in a goddamn ring. And then Gunther refuses to interact. And I think that's the way you end up doing that, because you want to show that Gunther is all focus. You want to show that Gunther is... nothing is distracting Gunther. Gunther is just waiting and ready to end up going in and taking apart Jey when that ends up happening. So I literally think that's how you end up doing that. Have a quick 5-minute segment like that. Then you end up doing the Nikki Bella bit. And I know for a fact WWE are going to spend about 5 minutes on a goddamn entrance. So I'm also going to cheat a bit for a second. This is something you're not really meant to do, but screw it. WWE informal. They don't currently have her having a contract, so we'll just do that. Start on the day that we're going down. There's no way she'd be paid that little, but whatever. Let's just do it as written. Screw it. Okay, I need to ban you. The joys of having an invader come true, so ban. What? Coolaboola. I'll just add you as that. Actually, I'll cancel that for a second because there's literally no point in putting a start date. I don't know when to put the release date, so I mean, I'm just going to, for now, put it after Evolution. So we'll put it to there and see if we decide to do anything with her. This is cheating, by the way, but we know that she's there and they've already agreed to this. Otherwise, I'd need to do the actual negotiations and all that stuff myself to add her. But for now, I'm just going to do this. Where is she a main eventer? None. Do we just have a legend? No. So we'll put down that at the moment, and I'll leave that 50 maybe. We'll just do that for the. God damn it, Craic. Okay, so back to the game. So now we do the Nikki Bella bit. So we know she's showing up. So we've that hype done there, and then we do the massive entrance. And WWE are going to milk that for everything it's worth. So I think they'll end up doing the guts of a maybe 60-minute goddamn bit. Goddamn, I need to change her name. There we go. Do that. So we go back to this again and we add in her entrance. We go, and this is WWE, not that, because she's not on any brand yet, because she can interact with all of them, and she's only here for Evolution. That is the only reason she's here. So you give her an extravagant entrance. You give it about 6 minutes, because of course they're going to end up doing it. Legend, quote unquote. So you basically just have that down there. Nikki Bella arrives. Now, I genuinely think the option for Nikki Bella here is Becky Lynch. So you have her before she's able to speak a word. You have Becky Lynch do an entrance. and Becky Lynch have a small enough entrance, nothing too extravagant. Actually, that would be extravagant enough. She'd probably be equally as extravagant there. To come out, Becky Lynch will come out. Becky Lynch will cut a promo on Nikki. And Lyra. So the thing about Becky is, even though Becky is currently a heel, I think Becky's current character would immediately give Lyra a rematch. Now, you could fight that. Which I think is actually the best way to do it. Because you have two options. They have Night of Champions as the show in Saudi Arabia. And the problem with Night of Champions, and this is why I hate that it's called Night of Champions, is Night of Champions should have all of the champions being played. Now, I don't think Becky Lynch is going to end up having a match at Saudi Arabia. I think she should. I think it should be Becky Lynch versus Lyra Valkyria again. So, now that I think about it, let's look at the timing again. Saudi Arabia is here. 19 days away. After Saudi Arabia, we then have Evolution. And after Evolution, we then have the 2-day SummerSlam. What type of deal would they... No, I'm just thinking to myself, what type of deal would they have done with Nikki Bella? Because obviously Nikki Bella is coming back for Evolution. That's what she's there for. That's what she's there for. She's there for Evolution. But she's coming back really, really early. Do you put her into the Queen of the Ring tournament and have her fail? So, like, the options you could do is play Nikki Bella around Lyra Valkyria and Becky. If she's showing up enough for it. So how do you do it? What's the best way to do it? I think you have Nikki Bella arrive. You turn around and you get her to say she's going to join the Queen of the Ring tournament. You have Lyra Valkyria on Raw go one-on-one with Nikki Bella and shock everyone with having 2 back-to-back women's qualifying matches. By doing that, you can then have Becky stop Nikki. You then can have Nikki stop Becky. You have Lyra going into the tournament, where eventually Becky screws Lyra. You get Becky versus Lyra at Saudi Arabia, and then you get the winner of Becky and Lyra versus Nikki at Evolution. That only works if Nikki's willing to do 2 matches. And how quick do you do those 2 matches? No. Although you can tell me if I'm on anyways the right track, Skull, or if you think I'm being delusional in the thought process of what I'm doing there. Does that sound like it's a good idea, or am I going into the weeds a bit there? Because I don't know why they've brought Nikki Bella back so fast, and the only problem with Nikki Bella is blatantly Nikki Bella versus Becky Lynch. Nikki Bella versus Becky Lynch is obviously the match that they should do at Evolution. Well, it isn't, but that's the match that they're going to end up setting up. She won the goddamn championship. It's why she should end up doing it. So how many matches does she have in her stream? Because what I would do, if she has multiple matches, is immediately make her have a match here. Surprise everyone, come out dressed in her usual wrestling garment, because she never shows up without a wrestling garment. Joke with, be interrupted by Becky Lynch, who turns around and says she doesn't deserve to be in the Queen of the Ring. And then have Lyra Valkyria come down, immediately do Lyra Valkyria versus Nikki Bella, have Becky Lynch sit ringside and interfere in the match to make Lyra win, because she feels sorry for Lyra after taking the championship from her. Eventually, that'll end up leading to Lyra Valkyria getting kicked out of the tournament later on by Becky Lynch coming back and interfering. Becky versus Lyra at Night of Champions. Becky versus Nikki Bella at Evolution, and then if you're using her at SummerSlam, maybe a traditional tag team match at SummerSlam. I don't know. It would be better if it was Survivor Series. I don't know why you use her at SummerSlam unless she beats Becky. I don't know. If there's anyone in any of the other chats that have any recommendations, please do end up saying. This is one where I'm genuinely a little bit stuck on what I would do. I think they've written themselves into a bit of a corner on this one. Screw it. We'll go with that. Entrance and announcement for Queen of the Ring. You could do the match now. Or additionally, you could do the match the following week. I think it's better to do the match straight away. Just do it as a big surprise. So Nikki arrives, announces she's going to be in the Queen of the Ring tournament. Then Becky shows up. Does a kind of big entrance herself. On Nikki and, as a result, Lyra. Becky. Here's big entrance. There's Nikki not deserving. Should be return of Becky 2 belts. Because why not make that inclination of what you're going to end up doing? Have it that Becky ends up talking around saying that she should win at Saudi Arabia, so that she goes on to SummerSlam to face Io Sky, so that she can be Becky 2 belts, like Lyra was Becky 2 belts. Then again, because I really think you need to play up Adam Pearce. I think Adam Pearce comes out again. And Adam turns around and makes Nikki Bella versus Lyra right there, right now. Comes out and says there, Becky 2 belts. Pearce comes out, asks Nikki if she's serious. Nikki says yes. Pearce says okay. Then your match is now versus her Lyra entrance. And I think that's how you end up doing that. I think that's the whole segment you end up doing that. It gets everyone connected up. It brings Lyra into the situation. Lyra ends up getting back into this situation. You set up Nikki versus Becky, Becky versus Lyra, Lyra versus Nikki. You basically set up a triple threat match type of situation there. I think that's the best way you go about it, and that's the best use of Nikki Bella. If Nikki Bella has multiple matches in place that she can end up doing. And then you basically end up leading into a Lyra Valkyria versus Nikki Bella match with Becky Lynch ringside watching the match. You again would end up probably having one of the women in charge of that one. We don't know who the actual guys are in charge of each individual segment, so it doesn't matter who you click. But I mean, these guys need it, so we're going to put Shane Helms there. And we're going to go and we're going to give it to Lyra Valkyria. We're going to have this because of outside interference that Lyra doesn't see. Nikki Bella is going to end up losing. We're going to end up having this is about a 6-minute match. The entire point of this is to make Lyra Valkyria look good. And I think that's the way you end up doing this. Out Lyra knowing. Okay, so that's that. Now, that gives us 90 minutes of the show 100% booked. Now, WWE Raw is an interesting show in that its commercial break periods of time are done with little individual segments of video packages and little individual segments of promos. Now, we're going to need to add them into this. So, on an average Monday Night Raw, I'll go through it in a second, Up. If you want to wait until the end, I can describe what I'm going through since you were late. Or I can give you a quick. I'll give you a quick update on what we're at because I'll be doing it at the end anyway. This is how I would book Monday Night Raw. Do a 3-minute video package of what ended up happening because why the hell not? Start off with Cody coming out after the big win, rambles about his win and the fact that he wants to end up saving wrestling, and he'll do it via a match with John Cena, either by the King of the Ring or by another means of ended up doing it, because he should mention that he has his goddamn rematch. Truth appears with no music. Truth says he deserves it because he got the opportunity. You have your first Money in the Bank, or not Money in the Bank, King of the Ring qualifier match. Cody Rhodes ends up pinning Truth, but barely. Cody Rhodes versus John Cena announced or not King of the Ring. Cody Rhodes versus R-Truth announced for Night of Champions. That's 1-on-1 there. Eventually that's going to be with R-Truth as a special guest referee. We'll continue to do that out. I think you need to use AAA, so that's why we use Mr. Iguana. I know there's multiple things you can do there, but he's massively popular here as well. Use him now while he's there, and he'll get knocked out soon enough. Dom gloats about that going down. Then we have Raquel versus Stephanie Vaquer. Stephanie Vaquer true, so Iguana and Vaquer first true in the tournament, just as a way to hype up AAA. And then we're here at the Nikki Bella bit. I don't know how much of that you got or missed because of the advertisements happening on Twitch, but you know, you can wait until the end next time. Anyway, that match ends up happening. So I don't know what they're doing with Nikki Bella. So that's what I'm doing with Nikki Bella. I have Nikki Bella coming out for a Legend entrance, announcing she's going to be in the Queen of the Ring tournament. Which, by the way, give me 1 second. Yeah, I don't care, Chad. And then surprising everyone with this being a Queen of the Ring tournament match because no one expected it. So you have announced 2 of the women, 1 of the men. Nikki Bella is there for a reason. It gives you a setup for Becky versus Nikki at Evolution, and there's how we end up doing it. I had a good weekend. I actually enjoyed most of the WWE shows that were on, and it got me kind of blood pumping to try this. I don't know what everyone ends up thinking about it, but it's something different and it's something nice. And at the end of it, I can end up clonking it up into a segment for a video or something like that, and end up going like that and see how it ends up working. So I'm going to record at the end of this and see how it ends up working. But that'll be once we're finished. We still have another good bit to end up going through it. I mean, it was a sound show. I don't think it was a great show. I think the AAA show was far better. I think in terms of Money in the Bank shows, it was maybe a 6 out of 10 in terms of Money in the Bank shows. The main event was helped by its ending. And the ending is paramount in all of these cases, but I'm not, actually, I'm not at all familiar with him. But he does, he's like Adam Blompy and does a How It Should Be Booked series, is it? Well, this will be my How It Should Be Booked. From now on. Well, this is going to be mine for now. I'm going to take the end bit of this. You can sit with me, talk about how I'm going to go through it, see if any of this makes sense, and then at the end of it, I'm going to record how I ended up doing it up and trying to put up a video for it. So we'll see how that ends up going. So, I think that's how we end up doing that. I think it's a short match. I think Becky costs Nikki. Lyra doesn't know about it. Lyra Valkyria wins. You have 2 of them decided there. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 matches. I don't think you get away with another match on Raw, so I think now you need to add the Jey Uso match. I think you might get away with 6, but nowadays, the way they have it booked, you only go for 5. So I think now you add the Gunter Jey Uso match. I do think the Gunter Jey Uso match is longer than your average bear. I do think this match is over 20 minutes. That's where I haven't decided yet, because it would make sense for Seth to cash it in now. But I also think Seth Rollins is doing a semi, I'm going to say, of wrestling gimmick and not talking about it yet. I think he's doing John Cena's gimmick, but not really talking about it. I think he's doing what Jon Moxley wanted to do with the Death Riders, setting up a group that will end up saving wrestling. So what I think Seth is going to do instead is Seth will end up doing a promo, which I haven't set up yet, so I need to end up doing that segment. Seth is going to end up doing a promo where he basically says, now that I have the money in the bank, and I have proven before I can cash in, I'm not going to use it. And I'm going to become the World Heavyweight Champion by becoming the King of the Ring. And then I'm going to hold the money in the bank as a showcase to everyone of the brilliance of the architect, the brilliance of Rollins. And I think that's how he ends up doing it instead. I think he is going to do the exact opposite of what he done the last time and hold the briefcase hostage. I still think he's going to tease it. I think himself and Naomi are going to do the exact opposite. But I think he's going to tease it, but I think he's going to turn around and have it hostage. He's going to show up everywhere and end up doing it that way. So I don't mind that Naomi was picked, okay? I don't mind that Naomi was picked. I don't like Naomi. Okay, I don't think Naomi is a good wrestler. I think she's sloppy in the ring. I think the only thing that she ends up using is her ass in order to end up doing anything with it, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But the big thing that annoys me about Naomi is she has now created a brand new character, a character that can get over, a character that has gotten over, but a character she can't stick to. She had 3 interviews after winning Money in the Bank and broken every single one of the interviews. Now, to be fair, Big E is an asshole and mentioned R-Truth to her. Anyone would break at the fact that R-Truth ended up coming back. But she broke 3 times. She can't keep the I'm a bitch face anymore. And I think that is a legitimate problem that Naomi has. So you now need to use Naomi knowing Naomi can't keep her character. How do you use Naomi knowing Naomi can't keep her character? You have 2 options. You turn her face, or you don't let her use her character. So that's the problem with Naomi. Naomi is definitely deserving of it, but she needs a complete character rearrangement, a complete character change, or to at least follow her own character. Well, we'll come to that in a bit anyway. So we just need to know that we have that 20 minutes there. I do, actually. That's the reason why I have Iguana up here. Because now that they own AAA, WWE would be daft not to use them. After this weekend, you know that Iguana has nuclear love. It's all over online. Pop them on Raw and end up doing that. I genuinely think it would be the way you end up doing it. He's going to get knocked out of it straight away, but have Iguana win against Chad Gable in the King of the Ring tournament. Have El Grande Americano come up later on and have El Grande Americano knock everyone out at the King of the Ring tournament until he fails at the end or goes through in the end. I haven't decided yet. But we'll see. At the moment, Chad Gable has lost to Iguana as a funny way to end up having Triple A there. El Hilo del Vikingo is going to show up in the audience of every single Monday Night Raw for the next wee while anyway, so we're as well continue with it. I think that's the way you end up going about it. Now, do bear with me 1 second, guys. I just need to check on one quick thing, so I'll be back momentarily, so just bear with me. Okay, I've returned. So let's continue on for a bit. Lindsay, I'm guessing you're on about Lindsay Dorado or Dragon Lee doing a Spanish fight, that puppet watch. Was so funny. I mean, yeah. And it's just nice to see a good bit of interactivity between them as well. So, we here, before Nikki Bella came out, had the hype for the main event. I think we need to add to this. So we have Jey Uso talking to Sami, building a wee bit of tension between the two of them, because I think they're going to continue to do that. And then I think Seth Rollins shows up. Benny, my good man, what's a crack-a-lackin' with you? Is life going well? Is all sound and dandy? How is all treating you, my friend? You've joined in at the fun of the crack booking random crap. Also, by the way, allow me to state that Seth freaking Rollins has his group here, okay? And they have yet to tell me what their group name is. So until I am told in real life what they are called, I am not calling them anything but Rollins's Goof. They're called Rollins's Goof until I'm told differently. Because what the hell are they called? The WWE hasn't told us. Division isn't a bad name, but WWE hasn't told us. Like, if WWE, by the time I come back around to the next Raw or the Raw after that, and WWE still hasn't told us what their name is, I'm making a goddamn logo for Rollins' Goof. There are a couple of changes I need to make into this as well, by the way. There are a couple of inconsistencies that need to be fixed that they're noticing, but that'll be done afterwards. Anyway, I think you have them appear. And to Jay. And to Sami. Ooh, I actually need to check something, because is John meant to show up on Raw? 'Cause it does make a difference. Yeah. So he is set to appear. Okay, fair enough. So the only lineup they've given is the World Heavyweight Championship match, Seth Rollins to appear, John Cena to appear, King and Queen of the Ring to start, and Nikki Bella to appear. That's all that they've said. And Becky Lynch to appear. So the fact that John actually does have an appearance here changes one or two things, but we'll go back to that afterwards. So we'll put that there for now, but we need to have Rollins have his moment. So I think Rollins needs to do it. I've kind of written myself into a corner here. Bear with me. Paul Heyman backstabs everyone, so it would be perfectly... I mean, the Backstabbers isn't a bad name, other than the fact that you've gotten rid of Carlito, who is the perfect backstabber. You know, that's the only problem with that particular name being used, you know? How do you feel about the fact that you're over 6 months with us there, Senior Duck? How do you feel about that? Yeah, I think you do it straight after Cody Rhodes and R-Truth. Yeah. Well, to be fair, you can do it in the back. No, it's Seth Rollins. He'd be out in the ring. Oh, yes, fair enough. Probably. We'll end up seeing me end up being absolutely atrocious about this, but you can end up having the crack and going through it with me. Yeah, so I effectively think he's just going to gloat about his win and say how he's going to cash in without, or going to win the World Championship without cashing in. Because that's what I would end up doing. Considering you had him win it, and he's the only one who doesn't need the goddamn win, literally make it that he's just not going to use it. Now, one of the things I'd actually love to do, but I don't think it makes any actual sense to do it, and we'll revert some of this around to end up fixing it later on, but one of the things I'd love to end up doing is John Cena announcing that he's going into the King of the Ring so that he could win the King of the Ring and not defend the championship at SummerSlam.
Yeah, so I've actually managed to screw myself a bit. So that's the joys. I've done this a couple of times. I was expecting this to end up coming a wee bit later on, but well, that'll be what I'll be doing later on when I end up setting up CSEW. I have a couple of the logos and the whole lot set up for it, but that'll be future Craic's bit of fun. Let's see if I can actually show you them. Bear with me 1 second. While I'm thinking and being a twit. Where do I have them left? Where do I have them left? I think I put them... Or are they on the other laptop? Yeah, they're on the other laptop, so never mind. I can't show you them here. I have them on the other laptop, so I can't show you them, unfortunately. I'll show you them in the future. That's 1.75 liters, Skull, but I understand completely what you mean. Where did I put it? Yeah, there. Coca-Cola Zero, my friend. And announces entry of all 3 into the King of the Ring. So that's that there. He does it immediately after this match. In fact, hits his music as soon as this ends. It's his music as soon as Cody wins. I think... Let's see. So I need to do the timing of this right. So bear with me 1 second. I'm going to bring up a calculator because I need to actually get the timing of this 100% right. So we have 3 plus 3 plus 9. Because I had the timing fine before this, but I don't now. Plus 2 plus 6 is that. Plus 11. Okay, that's a half an hour point. Plus 11. That's 45. It does, but I've screwed up the timing because I have so much other crap done. It has the timing screwed up a bit on me. It's 5 plus 9. I mean, that would get you there. Ah, I know exactly where we do it. We do it after this match. This match is going to be 20 minutes, and we finish within the half-hour period of time. That means that if we lower some of this... and then lower a tiny bit off that. Bring that down by 1, bring that down by 1, and bring this down by 2. Okay? That would mean here, right after this match where Lyra wins, you do, I think, yeah. Okay, so let's look at our talents. We want to see our push because we want a video package and then bring Cena out.
You don't want to mention Bailey. Oh God, that's a kettle of fish. I just have to thinking there. That's probably the match that should. I just have to think that's probably the match that should be at Evolution. Bailey versus Nikki Bella ends up putting a can of worms into all of this because that should be the match that happens at Evolution. Or Bailey wins the Queen of the Ring. I think you just do a random video of El Grande Americano with elevated production there. Now you do the Cena segment. At the 2-hour point, you do the Cena segment. So Cena comes out and does his entrance. Okay, so now you do your entrance for Cena. At the 2-hour point. And you do that. Okay, I'm going to change that. Bear with me 1 second. So save that and then go to my all workers because that's going to piss me off. Where's his manager? My roster, so I suppose. Cool. Click to change. None, because that's pissing me off. He's not going to be used for a while. So, and I think the way you go about this is you have Cena come out. You make him do his entrance, and then you have Cena spout how... I'd like to do Cena goes into the King of the Ring and ends up winning it in order not to defend it at SummerSlam. But I also think that's not realistic. So I think the best use of Cena here is to completely ignore truth, completely ignore Cody and the fact that Cody is now his opponent at Saudi Arabia, and literally just announce that Logan Paul is going into the King of the Ring on SmackDown, where they're one step closer to ruining wrestling. I genuinely think if you want to end up getting heat on him, you do that, because we done this up here where Truth ends up interrupting Cody. Truth says he deserves the championship match, failed to beat Cody. Truth is now upset. Cody now has his match versus Cena. Cena appears later on, ignores everything about it, and basically announces that Logan is going into the King of the Ring. You're not going to get away with that, actually. Says he's beaten Cody once, will do it again. Then says that's not important because... and then announces Logan Paul is entering the King of the Ring. And The reason why that's important is because as he's about to leave, I think that's literally the best way you can do it. Literally the best way you can do it. Have Cena be an unbearable arse about the fact that they've literally made the WrestleMania main event match and he doesn't care. Then CM Punk comes out and announces he's entering the King of the Ring and he's going to win and face either him or Cody at SummerSlam. And then the minute that he announces that, the minute that he's finished with that, Gunther's music hits and you're going into the main event. So this is for the World Heavyweight Championship. That there. So, Seth Rollins' music hits. But, Seth Rollins' music hits towards the end of the match. Gunther and Jay are surprised. Gunther strikes Jay, but refuses to do the pin. He needs the win to be a proper win. Waits for Jay to get back up. Logan Paul appears, hits Gunther, drags Jay on top, says he's coming for Jay. Because I think Logan Paul versus Gunther is going to happen again at some point in time, but that's how I do the main event. That's my opinion on the main event. I think that's how you do the main event. I don't think Gunther ends up being tapped out or anything like that. I think Gunther is about to win and then pucks up to be changes around, says, I don't want the cheap win, I want to win. I want to prove that I can win. And as a result of that, Logan Paul ends up costing him because Logan wants to win the King of the Ring and face Jay and no one else but Jay. It leads to a situation where Rollins is interrupted, which means he's still there even though he doesn't want to use it. Logan ends up having rivalry with Gunter. Logan has achieved what John Cena said that he wants to do in John Cena's wish of the bad end to wrestling has come around. We now know that Punk is in the equation of it as well. I think that's the way you end up doing it. I think you also do this. I think that's how you end up doing that as well. I think you need Karrion Kross to keep hecking at Sami. So I think you do that after the El Grande Americano hype video. Then you have Karrion Kross pecking at Sami, considering you know Jey Uso's match is coming up after this particular situation ends up happening. So I think this is the show. You have your Money in the Bank PLE video recap. You have Cody Rhodes' big entrance. You have him rambling that he's going to win and needs to get the championship off of Cena via the King of the Ring or his rematch clause. Truth ends up coming out stating that he deserves the opportunity. Pierce comes out and says that he agrees with both of them, and if Truth ends up beating Cody tonight, he takes Cody's rematch clause. If Cody wins, he faces Cena at Night of Champions. Cody ends up winning, but barely in a flash pin. On. Basically, that. You have Seth Rollins gloating about the fact that he won and that he's not going to cash in and he's going to become the world champion. Doesn't state which world champion, but one of the world champions. You then, after that, go back to Chad Gable, going on about how he is great and should end up doing. You have him in the King of the Ring tournament. Dominic Mysterio gloats after he loses, stating that he wouldn't have lost and that he's the best and should be in it. Finn basically makes a joke about it. Adam made a match of Raquel versus Vaquer as the first King of the Ring. Vaquer wins. Liv and Dom tried to help. Liv, Dom tried to help. Rox seemed to help, but her help led to the Bakor win. Dom and Finn look with tension due to this. JC, JD calms things down before the camera pans. Rocks says, "Don't worry, I'll represent next week." And I think that's how you do that. Then you have Jay talking to Sammy. Sammy warns about the tension, and then the pans over to Gunter, who refuses to interact. Nikki Bella arrives, and the announcement for the Queen of the Ring. Becky appears with a big entrance, says Nikki's not deserving, should be the return of Becky Two Bells. Pierce comes out and says that, asks if Nikki is serious. She says yes. Pierce says, okay, your match is now. Nikki versus Lyra Valkyria. Becky interferes, costing Nikki. Making Lyra win without her knowing. Nel Grande Americana hype video stating will return soon once he recovers. You then have Sammy leaving Jay's locker room, meets Arian. He and too many pronouns. And Carrion says, look, everyone is leaving you behind. John Cena makes his appearance, says he's beaten Cody once before, will do it again. Important announces Logan in the King of the Ring as he's about to leave. CM Punk appears, and then Gunter comes down, passing all of them, not caring about anything that happens. Gunter versus Jey Uso. Seth Rollins music hits, refuses to do anything, but as that happens, Gunter strikes, refuses to take the pin. He wants a proper win, waits for Jey to get back up. Logan appears, hits Gunter, hits Gunter. Jay capitalizes with spear and splash. Still champion. And I think that's it. What does everyone think? If there's anyone still here, what do you think? Because I think that's pretty much it. So I'm going to give a record of this and see what ends up happening. So I'm just going to end up doing that now, and then Bob's your uncle happy out. So just bear with me now 1 second while we end up doing that bit. Okay. Well, salutations everyone. This is the showcase of how I would end up booking Monday Night Raw for the 9th of the 6th, 2025. I would end up starting off the show with a video.
Here we go. Money talk.
Video recap of... You picked a horrible time for that. I have to start again because of that. But no bother. Let's see if it ends up working out.
Salutations, everyone. This is how I would end up booking Monday Night Raw for the 9th of the 6th, 2025. I would start things off with a video package of Money in the Bank PLE, which in this particular case, the show... oh, crap. Let me do that again. You can tell I'm not good at doing recorded content, can't you? Salutations, everybody. The following is my showcase of what I would do for Monday Night Raw, the 9th of the 6th, 2025, using Pro Wrestling Simulator as a showcase as to whether or not I have any direction at all, or if I'm completely daft. The way I'd end up starting off the show is doing a short but thorough, elevated video recap of all the stuff that was done on Money in the Bank. Getting a good showcase of everyone that ends up coming in, showing off the entirety of the 5 matches in a quick display, the couple of winners, the showcase of the AAA indication for Dominic Mysterio's championship match, and everything ended up coming in. As it ends up showcasing here, if this was the case, it'd end up getting a 100%, so I'm a bit happy on how Pro Wrestling Simulator thinks that would end up working. I would then have Cody Rhodes come out straight away with a big entrance after his win over John Cena at the showcase. That entrance would end up getting the crowd up, a nice way to end up starting the show. Get your whoa straight into the showcase. Let's just go 1, 2, 3, whoa! Because why not? As he ends up coming, Cody Rhodes would end up starting his big promo package for everyone to end up seeing. He'd end up talking about it. Unfortunately, this thinks that would cause a popularity problem, which it could do because he'd be slighting down John Cena, stating that he deserves to be the WWE champion, deserves to end up facing John Cena, be it via the money or the King of the Ring, or just his rematch that WWE has said nothing about. Then on top of that, we'd end up having the man that helped Cody Rhodes win that match at Money in the Bank. We'd have R-Truth end up appearing. Now, unfortunately, this ends up having R-Truth. So unfortunately, this ends up having R-Truth end up coming back. Now, based on this, his popularity isn't exactly big, so that's the reason why this ends up giving it a lower value than what ends up happening. But I think everyone will be happy to see R-Truth end up coming true. Truth will come out with no entrance music, the way that he did with the little Jimmy situation, so you don't know how he's interacting because we're doing the swap from R-Truth to Ron Killings, but I think he still needs to be R-Truth for this particular segment anyway myself. He will basically say that he deserves to end up having an opportunity versus John Cena because he gave Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso the win. He says that Cody Rhodes has already had his chance and that he should end up having the go to it. Adam Pearce will end up coming out and state that Cody Rhodes makes a valid point, R-Truth makes a valid point, and the best way to find out is to have a match right now. The winner faces John Cena at Night of Champions. The two of them end up facing off against each other. Cody Rhodes ends up getting the victory, but after a contentious matchup, the two of them back and forth with each other, Cody barely ends up getting the win, but gets the win. Inevitably, this will end up leading up to a situation later on. My ultimate goal is to have R-Truth be the special guest referee for that match, and you're not sure whether how his allegiances lie because he wants to face Cena. If Cody wins, he'll no longer get the chance to face Cena, so we'll end up seeing how that ends up going, but as of now, his opportunity has been vanquished by one Cody Rhodes. After this, we end up having
bit of a break there ends up coming through, and one Seth Rollins ends up coming down to the ring, gloating about the fact that he is Mr. Money in the Bank.
I don't even know if that's PG.
He doesn't know whether or not... no, that's not what he does. Indeed. No, so the way that would end up working is he comes down and says he has won the Money in the Bank for the WWE. And that long since it has been here, it has been a way for people to get what they don't deserve. And that he is above using the Money in the Bank. And that he and the entirety of his crew, where hopefully WWE will give us their goddamn name, will enter the King of the Ring, and one of them will face the world champion at SummerSlam, and the Money in the Bank will be wasted this year as it is not needed. It is a supplement. It is a blight on WWE, and we can do better without it. After that is done, and he has finished up his segment, then I'd end up moving on to Chad Gable, who talks about how he ended up doing versus Vikingo, gives a little update on El Grande Americano, who he says should be the Money in the Bank winner, and everything that Seth Rollins said is nonsense and foolish. He states that if he was in the King of the Ring, he would end up winning and becoming the #1 contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. Adam Pearce ends up interrupting and says that it's funny that he says that because it would have been Chad Gable versus El Grande Americano, but El Grande Americano is unfortunately currently out with an injury for an undisclosed amount of time. But tonight, Chad Gable, you get an opportunity to prove yourself. Next, you have a match as the first match of the King of the Ring tournament. After his popularity over the weekend, we end up having Chad Gable versus Mr. Iguana. In this particular case, they say that the crowd doesn't care. I'm sure the crowd will end up caring, but Mr. Iguana will end up winning the match after an interference from El Hilo del Vikingo and Penta. Ignore that. That's not meant to be there. That's the game being a pain in the arse. I'll have to edit an X into that. Chad Gable ends up losing, is annoyed about the situation, but ultimately this will end up working for Chad Gable as El Grande Americano will come back at some point in time. After this contest, we end up showcasing back over to the Judgment Day and one Dominic Mysterio, who ends up mentioning that if he was in the ring with any of those luchadors as the greatest luchador of all time, he would end up winning. Finn Balor ends up cutting in and states, well, you're not in the King of the Ring, Dom, but we do know someone that's in the Queen of the Ring, and says that Adam is after giving Raquel a match tonight. So let's see how you end up doing in a kind of vitriolic, kind of sassy, kind of bratish turn of view. You can see that Finn Balor is being very childish in every interaction that he ends up having. So we end up having Raquel Rodriguez versus Stephanie Vaquer. Stephanie will end up getting this victory there. There'll be a bit of shenanigans in the background of it as well. Ultimately, elements that Roxanne Perez ended up doing will cause a distraction that will lead to a Stephanie Vaquer win. Afterwards, Rhea Ripley will end up coming down, or during which will end up coming down. All of that ends up happening as a way to end up having interaction between the people that were in the ladder match, and all that ends up happening here. Rox basically announced to have a match next week, and that builds up tension with the Judgment Day, and we'll see what ends up happening there, who we end up putting Roxanne Perez against. I haven't 100% decided yet, but Rhea Ripley and Vaquer might be involved in that. We then end up having Jey Uso and Sami Zayn talking with each other as they're going back to Jey Uso's locker room. There's tension between Sami and Jey, and then the camera pans over to Gunther, who just ignores absolutely everyone and goes straight into the into his own locker room, basically showcasing full focus on nothing but the championship.
It's after this that one Nikki Bella ends up showcasing up. She makes her big entrance, cuts a promo about how she should be in the Queen of the Ring, thinks that she is legendary enough in order to do it, announces that she's going to be in it. Becky Lynch ends up interrupting her, stating she doesn't deserve to be in it, and that Becky Lynch deserves to be in it as Becky 2 belts once again. Adam Pearce ends up coming out stating that if Nikki is serious that she wants to be in it, she can have a match right now, and that leads to Lyra Valkyria versus Becky Lynch. Or not Becky Lynch, Lyra Valkyria versus Nikki Bella. Nikki Bella will end up losing this match due to the interference of Becky Lynch. Lyra won't have noticed this interference, and that will come into play later on. But for now, Lyra Valkyria is one step closer to the Queen of the Ring. After that, we have a quick hype video for El Grande Americano stating that he will be back soon once he is healed. You then have Sami Zayn leaving Jey Uso's locker room as Jey Uso is getting ready for his final preparations for the match when he meets Karrion Kross, who says that he's being left behind. John Cena then makes his entrance, stating that he is going to beat Cody Rhodes once again. Nobody needs to worry about that, but he has a better announcement, a bigger announcement for everyone. Logan Paul is in the King of the Ring tournament and will have a match soon. As he's about to leave, one CM Punk makes his entrance, states that he is also in the King of the Ring and he will face either John Cena or Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam in the grandest event of the summer. The summer of Punk is again coming around. And as Punk finishes up a statement, Gunther ends up marching out to the ring, ignoring all of them, ready for his match. Gunther versus Jey Uso. Good match ends up happening. Long match ends up happening. Ultimately, Seth Rollins ends up coming out, not indicating that he's going to cash in, but the distraction causes Gunther to end up hitting down Jey. But ultimately, Gunther decides he doesn't want to win that way, waits for Jey to come back up. In the meantime, Logan Paul interferes. Jey Uso spear splash win, and that's the end of the show there, with Logan Paul setting himself up as the next potential person for Jey Uso if he should win the King of the Ring. And that is how I would do Monday Night Raw, the 9th of the 6th, 2025. Please, in the comments, let me know whether or not this is competent, foolish, a disaster, or if you think it might actually be an okay show, based on how I'd end up putting it down here. The final rating for this particular show would have been given an 89%, gaining popularity based on Pro Wrestling Sim, so it thinks I've done an okay job. But is the game just daft? Either way, I would be interested to know how you end up feeling about it. Let me know your opinion. Attack the Craic in the comments there. Like, subscribe, and let me know your opinion. And until next time, as always, make sure your Craic is 90. Long a fool. And remember, it's screwed up. Of course it's screwed up. Of course it's screwed up. Oh, crikey. Let's add it and try it again. At the end it has to screw up. That's amazing. That's genuinely hilarious that screwed up there. Why isn't this appearing? Oh, whatever. And Pogue Mahone. Can't be arsed trying to figure it out. That's typical. Ah, crikey. Why did it break there? It's been working all goddamn day.
It's been working every stream for the last 5 streams, and then it breaks there. That is absolutely hilarious. That is actually bloody hilarious. I can't believe that. I genuinely can't believe that. But yeah, what did you think anyway, guys? How did you end up finding it? Weird. Why is that broken? Genuinely, why is that broken? The pop-up scene isn't working at all. Why? Okay. Oh, I know why. Tit. Had it layered wrong. It was working, I just had it layered wrong. Ah, Craic, you are an intelligent boy. An intelligent boy. But anyway, just wait for the advertisements to finish and then I'll ask everyone's opinion. So in general, what did you think of the stream? Was it an okay stream? What do you end up thinking? Is all of this daft? Or do you like the idea of the show? I actually have no interest in doing a Money in the Bank. Yes, we are.
I'm bad.
That timer, yeah. Something nice.
And I'm better than
Something
ever.
nice to let you know when the ads are coming.
For making things better.
Main event literally doesn't matter. I'm curious. Yeah, that's hilarious that it thinks that's the match you put on main event. I don't even know what was used in the last main event. Let me check the last main event, because I'm genuinely curious what they ended up doing. I don't watch main events, so that's interesting to me. Oh, that makes sense. Fine. Let's just do that. Main event doesn't matter, so I'm just getting this out of the way for myself. I'll get rid of the... Actually, you know what? Never mind. I can't be arsed. I genuinely can't be arsed. So, yeah. But when it came down to it, seemed to be an okay show. Got 89% on it. It's something there. Braun Strowman joining New Japan Pro Wrestling as a result of this. This is where things end up getting interesting, because you end up seeing some of these interesting ones. Christian Cage, WWE, or AEW renewal. Athena renewal. I don't know whether or not to ignore all of these. I think I will just ignore all of these and let them go through. Because like an awful lot of people just have their contracts up and you could end up going in for them if you wanted to. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So, do you guys have interest in watching this type of content again? Or what did you think of it? Is it a daft stream? idea, or do you guys? Is there any interest in what was being watched there? Just so I know for myself. Anyways, on everything else, I'm going to end up finishing up. Thank you so much on TikTok. I'm going to end up finishing the live there. Hopefully posting up some of this content as clips later on. But it was a pleasure to end up having you. So I'm finishing up on all the other platforms, and then I'm going to do a raid. So thank you so much, and I'll chat to you all later.